Hi everyone, my name is Mike Kaplan. Welcome to a free lesson called Lotan Mud, connected to our online Introduction to Permaculture course started in June. Let's get started. So first of all, who are we and why are we so happy? This is a photo of Alex, who is my partner in crime. We do a lot of things together, designing, building. So why is he so happy? Well, he's sitting on a mud bench. That's already interesting. But notice there's a clue there, and that is that square, big metal box, which is normally has any cooking oil from our kitchen. And what's happening is, why is he so happy? Because he's actually sitting on a bench made out of about 55 of those boxes. Normally they would go to the landfill. Instead, what we're doing is, as you can see, we're gluing them together with mud, putting them on top of rocks so they don't rust. The mud isn't on the ground so it doesn't get moist. And then what we do is we invite the helpers in, help cover everything up. We've got a lot of young workers on Lotan. At a very young age, they learn how to play with mud, how to work with mud, and we get the job done. So we realized that there's all sorts of resources around us which are just being thrown away, like tires, for instance. It's almost like a mitzvah. It's a good deed to use tires because they are a global problem. So we started basically taking our non-organic trash. Instead of it going to the landfill, there was no recycling in kibbutz yet. So we developed this way of making things out of tires and using non-organic trash waste and slowly building things. This was one of the first things we built, and you can see it slowly becoming a big turtle for the kids to climb on. And this is part of the children's playground in the Ecology, the eco park. And over the years, we built all sorts of different things, all with volunteers, with people coming through, helping out. No skilled labor of any at all. They do change. This is a dragon, for instance. They do change over the years as we maintain them. So, for instance, this one changed from green to purple. I think it also changed sex as well. Here's a throne, a nice armchair made out. You can see the plastic containers being slowly covered with mud. And this is for playing chess. Behind that, actually, you can see an igloo. It's not made out of snow and ice. It's actually made out of mud bricks. That's actually a little bit different to the other ones who are all made out of trash covered up with mud. And over the years, we just tried more and more things and pushing the limits of what we thought was possible. This, for instance, is a little tiny office extension to my house, and it's made from actually old chocolate milk bottles, which were from a kibbutz close to us. And they gave us, I think, 7 pallets of these things. And there was something wrong in the way they'd been built. So there's no chocolate milk in them, I'm afraid. We just got the plastic bottles. And you can see here, they're being put together, joined in with the mud. You can see concrete blocks at the bottom. This is what it looks like a little bit later. You can see the rocks have been covered, like some thin rock have been covered on top of the concrete blocks to make it a little bit more aesthetic. And covered with mud, and you'd never know it was made out of plastic bottles. And it's also really strong. Once you've got 5 centimeters of mud with straw inside the mud as a reinforcement to cover everything up, things become incredibly strong. Here's our bus stop on the kibbutz. And so here we're starting to experiment with using big tires standing on end. And then inside that big hole, what we're doing is we're putting also plastic containers, bottles inside there, gluing them together with mud. Once it gets covered, you really would not know it's made from tires. Once again, very strong. This is our bus stop, so the kids are climbing on it every day before they get on the bus to school. So it really has, it's tried the test of time, you could say. So that was all sorts of examples about mud, what we can do with them. But what is mud? So mud comes from the earth. And what could be more local than the earth underneath your feet? And in every normal earth, there should be 3 different materials in different percentages. We don't know what the percentages are. They are sand, they are silt, and they are clay. And those 3 things are in what we call the subsoil. So this is a picture of a normal soil profile. as you dig down into the soil, so at the very, very top, you've got organic material decomposing, and there you've got topsoil, and within those layers, you've got all the fertility of the soil, you've got root hairs, you've got bugs, insects crawling around inside there, and that's not really stable, and it's not appropriate for our building purposes. We need to dig a little bit lower until we get to what's called the subsoil. And then within the subsoil is where we're going to find our different percentages of the clay, sand, and silt. Now, the clay is very, very special. We need a minimum amount of clay inside our subsoil because the clay is basically the natural glue, which is gluing everything together. Here you can see a nice bench made out of a lot of mud, but this is what happens if there's too much clay inside the mixture. It shrinks and you get cracks in it. And that's why every earth has a different recipe. And sometimes we'll have local earth, subsoil, and we'll add sand to it to neutralize out the cracks, and we'll add straw in it as a natural reinforcement, a little bit like the metal bars inside concrete. Now, moving over to the two principles of mud building, we have to do these two things. Sometimes people forget, and they are a good hat and good shoes or good boots. Just like when we go out into the rain, we open up our umbrella, we have our boots on. So the same things we need to do with our mud structures. So good shoes, what exactly does that mean? Here's a beautiful example of an African structure which is for storing their grain. And you can see at the bottom, notice the mud doesn't touch the ground. There's these rocks here which keep it off the ground, and they're acting as what we call good shoes. They're separating the mud from the ground. If the mud was on the ground, moisture would soak up and it would just slowly disintegrate and basically be ruined. So we have to have good shoes. Here's another great example, once again, from Africa, a container for holding the grains in. And here what they've done is they've taken the rocks, put them on top of each other, and kind of built a stone platform. And on top of that, they put the rocks. They put the mud built on top of that. And that works really well. As long as the mud isn't too wet, so it doesn't fall in the cracks and touch the ground, as long as we've got that separation, good shoes. Here you can see some good shoes on Lotan. Here we've got tires standing up on end, and here we can see us just laying down the rocks onto the ground, up against the tires, and then the mud is going to glue onto the tire and on top of the rocks, and that's going to separate the mud from the ground. Here you can see tires being used laying flat with the trash pushed inside it, and once again you can see the rocks around it. Like that as well, the good shoes. This is before we put the mud on. Sometimes we do the opposite. Sometimes we'll put the mud on first, and on purpose we'll leave half a tire at the bottom with no mud on, and then we'll add the rocks a little bit later. Sometimes the rocks will be dug down, like a third of the rocks, so it's nice and stable. Or sometimes we'll put a little bit more time and effort into it, and we'll actually make a cement plaster to glue the rocks together so there won't be any cracks in between it. It'll make them stronger. Also, if you're building a house or something like that, you probably don't want those cracks because you don't want sort of creepy crawlies and things to creep inside there and make their homes inside. The cement plaster for gluing, the mortar for gluing the rocks together is really easy. 1 Portland cement to 2 sand, add water, so it's a little bit like hummus, a little bit sort of creamy, and that will be your glue. It's best to use white Portland cement rather than grey, and then it does look really natural and nice. You can see a beautiful example. This is our tea house on Kibbutz Lotan. You can see the rocks have been cemented together, and there you can see the mud, and then the mud has been made super flat, flush with the rocks, so they just sort of join onto each other really, really nicely. Now, we do have lots of examples of bad shoes just because we've learned from our mistakes. Sometimes we're a little bit lazy. Sometimes we think we can get away with things, but in the end, you cannot. You have to have good shoes. You can see here, even we live in an extreme desert, not a lot of rain, still there's moisture, gets in, slowly disintegrates the mud, no good. Moving over to a good hat, just like a cat likes to wear a hat when he goes out into the rain. The same thing we need to do with our structures as well. Another great, beautiful example from Africa. Notice the good hat, the roof and the overhang. There's a big distance from the mud wall, and that means it's protecting it from the rain from up above. So we've got our good shoes protecting it from underneath, from moisture sucking in. We've got our big hat protecting the walls so the rain don't even touch the walls at all. That's the idea. And here you can see a modern wood hat. Notice a tin roof coming all the way out here. This is from Arizona, USA, I think. Straw bales covered with mud, a nice big overhang, and it's turned into a wraparound porch as well, which is really nice. There's more space there for just hanging out. Here you can see the two principles together. Yeah, the good hat and the good shoes. What a beautiful example. It's straw bale construction covered with mud, built by, I think, 5 women built it. Very, very courageous, amazing, amazing project. They've got all sorts of people to help out in different stages. This is, I think, in Michigan, USA. Notice the good shoes, good hat, and also there's snow on the ground. There's snow on the ground, and yet there's a mud structure. So you really can build almost anywhere in the world as long as you fulfill these 2 principles, good hat, good shoes. So we've talked a little bit about what you can do with mud. We've talked about the principles. Now let's learn about how do you actually mix up the mud. I call this the classic way of mixing up the mud. And there's a few different stages. The stages are important. Stage number 1, pour in the water. Stage number 2, sprinkle in your subsoil, making sure you're all the time sprinkling where there's water. And then let it sit for a few minutes. So it absorbs the moisture, helps to separate the clay particles. So there's a little tiny clay particles that can float in the water. That's the natural glue, gluing everything together. And then after a few cosmic minutes, depending, if the earth is more lumpy, you need to leave it more cosmic minutes, 8, 10, 15 minutes. Less, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and then you can start mixing. Make sure it's all the same consistency. Now it's possible to add sand if needed. Yeah, if you've got a little bit of too much clay in there, you want to add the sand so it doesn't crack. So you're going to add the sand, mix it in, and then you're going to add the straw, mix that in. The sand is going to soak up moisture. Straw is going to soak up moisture. So you add water as needed until once again it turns into like a humusy-like texture. Although it depends on what you're building. What are you going to build with the mud? You're going to build sun-dried mud bricks, adobe bricks. Are you going to do it different building techniques? Often the recipe will change a little bit, and also the consistency of the mud will change depending on what you're doing. We're going to be learning about all those sort of things later on in the course. So I showed you mixing by hand, but there's a few other ways. Mixing by feet is a very efficient and fun way to mix mud. Yeah, to have a little dance in the mud is great, great, great. Our muscles in our legs are nice and strong. When you're mixing with your fingers, yeah, it can hurt. It can sort of be sore after a while, for sure, if you've got a lot of mud to mix. Now, if you do have a lot of mud to mix, well, 99% of the projects here will use a cement mixer, just because it is just so much quicker and more efficient just to mix up that mud. That doesn't mean that you can't mix up projects by hand or by feet. If you've got a critical mass of people mixing up the mud and you've got people putting the mud on, it can actually be great. It can be fantastic. Having said that, we do love our cement mixer. It does a great job. We normally make 2 batches, fills up one of these plastic boxes, then with a tractor, with a forklift, we'll move that over, or we'll move our mixing station right next to where the buildings we're going to be building. That's the idea. So we've mixed up our mud. Now there are actually a few different layers. There's sort of a way of doing it. And so the 4 different layers of mud are first coat. First coat is a thin layer. It's got more clay in it. It's nice and wet, and you kind of go, you sort of smooth it on, and it's kind of like a connector. It's a little bit like it's a connecting layer. Here you can see it also being done, the first layer gently on top of a tile which is standing up. And that's like a primer, that's what I'm trying to say. Here you can see the 3 different coats. The first coat is that thin layer, a little bit of clay in there, more clay than normal to really stick it to a foreign surface like a tire. You can see it's a little bit transparent even there. So it's a very, very thin. Second coat is already 2 to 3 centimeters thick. It's nice and thick, It's got straw in it, and that's starting to give it strength as it dries. Yeah, normally we'll give it a week to dry, something like that. And notice there's a lot of little holes in there. I call it playing the piano on the soft mud before it sets, and that gives it some surface area for the third coat to grab onto. And there you can see the third coat. And the third coat already now is another 2 to 3 centimeters. It's been put on the mud and now made nice and smooth. Because if we've done first, second, third coat properly, we should really have like a minimum of 5 centimeters. And that's going to make everything super strong. Here you can see someone with their hand putting on the third coat on the second coat, onto the second coat. There you can see the second coat with the holes in. There's the third coat, nice thick layer. Here you can see someone using a metal trowel to help connect the third coat to the second coat. And notice they're kind of using this sort of like vibration, sort of like this, and you can see those little lines there. That's just to help connect it. The very, very beginning. Normally what we would do is we would moisten the mud with water before we connect the new layer to the old layer. And here you can see after it's been connected, then we're here using with the metal tool to make it super, super smooth. So after the third coat, we could say that's it. Yeah, we can make it super smooth. We can let it dry, go over it with a moist sponge after that. Or what we could do if we wanted to is do a final coat. The final coat now doesn't have any structural value, it's just aesthetics. We normally sieve the material, it's a little bit of a different ratio. It's thin, it's only a few millimeters thick. It literally is just like the icing of a cake to make it look really nice and tasty as well. Sometimes in our projects, so we have all sorts of holes. Yeah, they turn up in between tires, here, there, everywhere. So really simple. Yeah, we just take a plastic bottle, put it in there, stick it in with mud, cover it all up. Make sure we've got that 5 centimeters of mud on the outside, and then it's super strong, no problem. So why do we do what we do? First of all, of course, you can see it's fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun playing with mud. But we realized that there's a bigger picture. We were building things for our children's playground. We were finding creative ways to get rid of our waste on Lotan because there was no recycling in Israel yet. And then we realized this bigger picture is that buildings consume 40% of the world's energy and 40% of the world's raw materials. So, you know, raw materials are being mined from Mother Earth. They'll be going through some sort of industrial process. There's all sorts of energy needed to make these materials. There's all sorts of poisons going on to the atmosphere. Materials are being shipped from one side of the globe to the other side of the world. And also there's, once the buildings are finished, there's inefficient buildings that have been designed and made where they're using a lot of energy for heating and cooling, the ongoing maintenance. And that costs us a lot of money. And so we started to move into the idea of designing and building energy efficient buildings for our area. So we got really interested in straw bale construction because straw bales are a local resource. They're a resource which you grow the grain and you're left with the stalks. Inside the stalks there's a nice hollow, like a straw, because straw for drinking your drinks, or straw in here. And they get put together into these like bricks, like Lego, put them together and then cover them up with mud. We don't leave the straw showing. And actually here you can see in a picture, this is one of 2 extensions we built. Notice the straw bales also on the roof. And then that's what it looks like after. You'd never know it was made from straw. We even did fire tests with our local building organization for codes. And also we started making an eco-campus. You can see it's a geodesic dome covered with straw bales, then with a 5 centimeter mud plaster on the inside and the outside. And we did research. We've been doing research over the years. Where we've been testing to see what the high and low temperatures are on this side, how much electricity they're using. And we really think that this could be something that could be replicated, copied in our area, or we know all over the world. So the Eco Campus is a very, very special place. There's 10 energy efficient domes there, and they were built by students, volunteers, children on the kibbutz. Everyone came to help out in the building of them. So I hope that's given you a good introduction to what is mud, what is earth construction, what can you do with it, what are the possibilities. Here's my summary. So mud is very, very creative. Like, your imagination is the limit, really. It's cheap, it's local. If you do something wrong, it's really easy. You just sort of break it off, add some water to the dry mud, and it comes back to life, then you put it on again. And it's also really is very, very easy and fun. We're going to be learning more about it on the course. Remember, we make mud from the subsoil, not from the topsoil. We need a minimum amount of clay in the subsoil for building purpose. Do you remember? Yeah, the clay is the glue, gluing everything together. If there's too much clay, though, what happens? Do you remember? Cracks, so not so good. Building, remember, fulfilling the 2 principles of mud building are essential for success in your building projects, whether it's a sculpture outside, whether it's a mud oven, whether it's a building. Remember the 2 principles? Yeah, good hat and good shoes. And also just that bigger picture, yeah, buildings consume a lot of energy and raw materials, so they really need to be designed, built and maintained in an ecological, responsible way. I hope you enjoyed that little mini lesson. So we're going to be, yeah, the online introduction to permaculture is basically a mixture of 30 of our best lessons from the Green Apprenticeship. And that Green Apprenticeship course has been going on for over 20 years here. We've got many, many people have done it. And basically we're turning that into an online pre-recorded lessons that incorporate also both theoretical and practical elements. Yeah, the practical elements are really important to us. Yeah, if you don't actually do it, then you haven't really learned it. Yeah, it's got to be inside. So we're going to be integrating all sorts of fun ways. We call it practical challenges and fun activities as part of the online course to give you confidence to start projects and also just to get stuff done. During the course also there's going to be a live answer and question and answer sessions, discussions, also to get you involved and for us to get to know you as well. So what are you going to learn on the introduction of permaculture? In this course, you're going to learn in simple steps how to grow healthy vegetables in your own garden or in your balcony. If you live in the city, you can still do it, for sure. And we're going to show you natural ecological construction methods and techniques. Also demonstrate technologies such as grey water, biogas, all sorts of other things, and all of these things are going to provide you with a practical set of tools and skills for designing your own home, your garden, your community, your business. And that all comes under this umbrella called permaculture, which we're going to go into. There's a whole load of lessons there to do with permaculture, to do with agriculture, growing vegetables, compost, how to make different types of garden beds, container gardens, saving seeds, you can save money, making cuttings from plants, also you can save money, a little bit about irrigation. Also the bigger picture about our society. How can we actually change our society? How can we understand where it comes from, what's going on? And that's this set of sessions here, the problem of growth, economics of happiness, localization, transition towns, eco-villages. All sorts of renewable energy and appropriate technology lessons as well, how to cook more efficiently, biogas, making cooking gas from your food scraps, one of my favorite, composting toilets, grey water, black water, making energy from the sun, photovoltaic systems. All of these things we're going to be covering in the course. About building, lots of things to do with building, and ecological design. These are really, really important. Because if you want to build your own house, you want to do it properly. It's a big investment in time and money and also materials. But also, if you're going to rent an apartment, how do you know you're renting a good apartment? By these lessons will you understand about what is a good design. And so you're paying the minimum amount for, if you design a house properly, you're almost paying nothing on heating and cooling, almost anywhere. So what do our students say about the Green Apprenticeship? This is Annabelle from Germany. The Green Apprenticeship opened me the doors to the world of sustainability. It expanded my horizons and inspired me for my future decisions in career. I honor the true human scale relationships we experience, where spirituality makes every day a special day and the lessons exciting. The way of teaching with an enormous motivation and passion to share knowledge makes the course what it is amazing. Here's Colleen. She was in February 2020. I gained so much knowledge about things I can do at home, like organic gardening and composting, as well as things I can practice further on my own, like building with mud and ecological design. I felt that the knowledge I learned about the alternative ways of operating things I do in everyday life was very beneficial, and it helps all participants learn how to incorporate sustainable practices into their lives. Here's Maya. Maya said, the Green Apprenticeship completely reshaped how I see myself in context of the world at large, both the impact I make and the potential I, as an individual, have to make positive change. And that's why we love to share our knowledge, is because we just want people, we want the knowledge to be passed on as much as possible. We want our students to, in the end, become teachers and pass on how to do things. So it is the first time we're doing this online course based on the Green Apprenticeship. So be one of the pioneers, please, of our first online course. The early bird discount price will be $250 till the 1st of June. After that, it'll be $350 till the 15th of June. And in the future, this course will be $1,000. Because it's the first time, we really want you guys to help us out. You won't find this much material and educational experience, believe me, on any other course. It's such an amazing price. Being a pioneer, you'll have the opportunity to shape future courses based on your weekly feedback that you give us. Also, all future improved content, because there's going to be new content coming out all the time. And we'll be sending that out to you as free of charge as part of our Pioneer first group. On completion of the course, of the online course, you'll receive an Introduction to Permaculture certificate, and you'll become part of this, what we call our global family of the Center for Creative Ecology, where we try and help people connect with each other, help people, we update people about all sorts of job opportunities that are going on all over the world. It's a great family to be in. If you're interested and you haven't sent your details to me yet, so please leave your details below. Also, if you've got any questions about the mini lesson I just gave you about mud, so leave your questions also, questions and comments below, and I'll get back to you. Have a great day, everyone, and hopefully see you soon. Bye.